Hello class, today I'm here to talk to you about looking up social work laws and policies. Many of you are struggling with that task for this particular assignment where you have to pick your topic. So I'm going to run you through some different governmental websites that can help you look up policies and laws that relate to social work clients. We'll start at the biggest level, which is federal. And so let's say you have a policy that you want to look up that affects every state in the union, something that's going on that you really want to make a change with. I'm going to pick a real popular policy right now, to look up because right now they're talking a lot about assault weapons based on what happened in Connecticut. So we'll look that up in a minute. But first I want to point out that where I am on this website page. I'm at the Library of Congress. It's called Thomas. And thomas.loc.gov is where you can look up any legislative information for the federal government that you want. I want to point out here on the right, they have the weekly top 5 ordinance proposed legislative pieces that have been looked up. And S stands for Senate. So in the Senate, Senate Bill 150 has been looked up many times. And when it says 113th, it means this is for this current session of Congress. Some of these say 112 or 111, so people are also looking at some older ones. So just know that sometimes people are looking up older ones to see if they're changing or what they might want to change. So HR would be House of Representatives, and this is the 152nd second proposed piece of legislation this year, and it is the Disaster Relief Appropriations Act of 2013. So that has to do with the money they're going to give people for disasters this year. So they also have some video going on, so you can watch Congress live. It's kind of about like watching paint dry, but sometimes it gets exciting when they argue. But you can look up words and bills here. So we're going to look up assault weapons because this is something that's currently in the news. So we're going to put assault weapons in our key search. There is a more advanced search. And when you're looking for policies and laws, keywords are of primary importance. So you need to be very careful in choosing your particular keywords that you're going to use. And I also want to point out there's a Twitter account here that could tell you when when sessions are convened, when they're letting out, what they're talking about, and so, those go on too. So you may want to follow on Twitter the Library of Congress situation here to see what's going on. Anyway, assault weapons. You put in your thing and you click search. As you can see, there are 4 different legislative pieces right now. 3 in the House of Representatives and 1 in the Senate having to do with banning assault weapons or gun safety. So I have found 4 bills. Now you won't always find 4 bills. So when you want to get more information, you just click on where the name of the bill is, the proposed legislation. And here you can see who sponsored the bill. It was Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas, and she introduced it on this date. There were not any co-sponsors, so she went this one alone. The latest major action was here. It was referred to the House subcommittee, so it'll kind of tell you, what's going on with the bill, where it is in the process. It tells the latest title. Sometimes the titles change. And here you can get all the information to it, any related bills, the text of it, a summary. That's probably the thing you want to read if you're going to be looking at it. And so that's one way to look up legislation. Now, we can go back home up here by clicking on breadcrumbs and going back to thomas.gov. You may know personally a representative. For example, I know Guthrie, Brett Guthrie. I've met with him several times to talk about different issues. So I'm going to be interested to see what he is a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but he still talks to me because he does have some interest in the citizens of Kentucky. So I'm looking to see what bills he is associated with at this time, and again he's gone it alone with this particular bill to require the submission to the Congress an annual report on tobacco user fees assessed and collected under Section 919. So he wants that to be submitted so Congress can see what's happening with these funds. There's a lot of tobacco user fees and taxes collected, so since we have a lot of tobacco money that should be coming to Kentucky, he's probably wanting to check and see where that's going. But you can check the text of the legislation. There is no summary on this, but you can get information and the text of it here, and you can look and see what Mr. Guthrie is wanting to do with this legislation, and maybe you need to talk to him about it. That's possible. So the things at the federal level would, again, be policies that affect everyone across the country. Things like federal health care, things like assault weapon bans that would be enforced in every state. Now, the next level that you might want to look at is Kentucky. You might want to look at the Kentucky legislative page. Now here it is lrc.state.ky.us/. So there's the website. It's up here. And when you're thinking about legislation, you could go, if you want to look at state level legislation, you would go there. Again, you can look up legislation the same way. You can see who is your legislator. Your legislator. It's by district, it's by member, and it's by Senate and House. So let's go by district. Let's go by county in the Senate. Let's see who is our state. We'll go all the way down to Warren, since that's me. And we have several. We have Johnny Bell, Jim DeCesare, who I met last year and talked to. Jody Richards, I talked to him last year. Wilson Stone, and Mike Wilson. I also know Mike, but I didn't go see him last year. So here we have 5 different representatives. Now, if you wanted to learn more about, say, Jody Richards, you would click on Jody Richards. You would then have his Frankfurt address. You would have his home phone number. His number, the annex is his office when he's there at the Capitol doing legislative action, which is where he will be when we go next week. Here's his mailing address if you'd like to mail him any information or maybe a letter, which I hope you do. Mail him your fact sheet so he'll have that information. Here's his email. You might want to email Jody. Here are the committees Jody's on. They're listed here. Here are the session committees that he's currently on this session. So if you, for example, had something to do with post-secondary education or education, you know he may be very well versed in those areas. So, for example, I know a student was thinking about school social work and having it would be a requirement for all schools to have a school social worker. If you were interested in that, you would probably have to check on education at legislation to see what's going on with that. You might talk to Jody Richards and ask him about the history of that. Jody's been a representative for a long time, so he may have a lot of information about the history of how that came to be. So that might be a very good person to talk to if you were interested in that. And, you know, realize that legislators aren't going to have a whole lot of time to talk to you, but so you need to sum up whatever you're saying in a few minutes, maybe 5 or less. Have 2 or 3 talking points. Do a little friendly small talk, and then you're on your way. But anyway, so this is, so you might look that up, and you might go to the Education Committee, and you could see who's on it, what's up with the legislative calendar. Here are some different things that are going on and where they're happening. So on February 6th, here's the calendar for that day. It looks like this meeting got canceled. But there's this House budget review. Here are all the people that are supposed to be there. Here's the people that are coming to talk to the committee. Again, this one was canceled, but you can see that here's a calendar that you can look at and find out where people are. If you want to meet them, you could rush over there and try to catch them when they're there. Sometimes it's easier to catch them on the run than anywhere else. So that's how you can find your legislator. But if you want to see about legislation and legislative record itself, you would go here. Now here's the session. There's a lot of bills that are going on. If you want to look at a bill in the Senate or a bill in the House, then you could look there. Here's an index. So you could see, depending on your topic, what you might want to look up. Now if you look through here, you'll see the kind of things the state legislator might deal with. Things like guardians, hazardous materials, health and medical services, highway, streets, and bridges. Now, the county would deal with county roads and bridges and highways. The state government will deal with state roads and highways. And then, of course, the federal government deals with interstate roads and highways. So you can see it gets kind of confusing because they all deal with roads, but they each have their own particular roads they're looking at. So let's see, what might be something that would be a social work topic? Maybe Medicaid. So we could click on Medicaid and see what kind of things are going on. We have the Senate bill on credentialing requirements for Medicaid. We have dental examinations for pregnant Medicaid applicants. This is a House bill that's listed on your social work bill tracking sheet. Here's a managed care waiver, not for non-emergency services, eligibility expansion. Managed care, waiver services recipients. Many of you may be working with waiver clients. That's a very common thing that happens. So, then you could click on the bill and you could see what the bill says. January 8th, it was introduced to the House. January 9th to the Health and Welfare Committee in the House. And so once it passes committee, it's sponsored by Jay Adams. Once it passes this committee, then it might, have some other things that happen before it actually gets to the floor for a vote. And at any one of those steps, it could be kicked out and is no longer allowed. But anyway, you can see here it's going to create a new section of KRS Chapter 205 to permit an enrollee in a home and community-based services waiver program to make a direct purchase of all necessary medical devices, equipment, and supplies. And it requires that this Cabinet for Health and Family Services promulgates an administrator to implement this section. So basically, people are going to be permitted to purchase things on their own and then turn in a receipt and get reimbursement. So that's going to be allowed. Right now, it's not. So anyway, that's how you would use this website. And if you click here, you're gonna there's going to be a hyperlink to a bill summary. But of course, it's right here too, so you don't really need to do that. But here's what it actually will look like. Okay, so that's that. Now, one thing I will say is that Warren County right now. Okay, so that's the state level. So if you were going to look up legislation that way, you could see what's going on. And also, there are certain places where you can go to track bills. Let's see. For example, Government Guru. You can look for zoning ordinances in Warren County, Kentucky. If you're interested in zoning, you may or may not be. That's not the website I wanted. Okay, well, what I was going to point out is here. The Warren County, Kentucky website has an ordinance page. They're supposed to list all their ordinances, and as you can see, that's not working at the current time. So I'm going to pull up another one for you to look at. But basically what you do is you search for your county, and usually it's your county.gov. But you could just Google Daviess County, Kentucky ordinances, and here's what you get. Here's an ordinance listing of all the ordinances in the county. Now, counties are responsible for such things as schools, sheriffs, roads, electricity, utilities in general, zoning laws. So that's the kind of things counties are in charge of. But if you're not sure, you could just look through here and it'll show you all the different things that counties are in charge of. Here's some joint agencies in Daviess County, finance, revenue. Of course, they have to worry about that. Public safety, so the fire department is county. The electrical inspector, there's a building and housing. All of that has to do with your particular county.